Morning, everybody. It's your boy Big, and I'm live again on this Tuesday morning. I'm so glad you could join me on this morning's edition of Bigg's Morning Motor Vehicle Musings. As I said, it's Lloyd, Dotson. Everyone calls me Big. I'm glad you joined me this morning, and I want to talk to you about something before I get into the gym there and do what I have to do. I've got a great topic this morning. I want to share it with all of you because I found myself, after it happened yesterday, realizing after the fact that it happened. So good morning. Make sure you shout your boy Big out. Say hello to me. Let me know where in the world you're dialing in from so I can shout you out. Good morning, Adrian. Glad you could join me. Good morning, Tiffany. Glad you could join me. As I said, let me know that you're on because I want to talk to you this morning about being in the zone. In the zone. Good morning, everyone. Make sure you shout your boy Big out because I think this topic this morning is going to be fantastic. I want to give you a little insight because, again, many people, especially in the sports arena, always talk about, that they're in the zone. When you have athletes seemingly effortlessly doing things, and people say that they're in the zone. You can't touch them, whether it's scoring points or whether it's hitting difficult moves, whatever it may be. Good morning, Brenda. Glad you could join me from Ontario, Canada. Like I said, I'm glad you joined me this morning on Bigg's Morning Motor Vehicle Musings. You know what's funny is I see a bunch of people pop on and then pop off. And then it's some of those same people that, guess what, are frustrated that they can't have results. And yet, if they only spent the 20 or 30 minutes with me on some of these, I'm hoping that it would actually help trigger some of the things that help them reach their true potential. And so I laugh a lot of times when I'll see, a number of people pop on and then they pop off, because the thing is, what are they expecting? Oh, I know, push button easy. But what I'm hoping to do each morning when I talk to all of you and have you listen to these talks is something is triggered. And one of the things that I want to talk about this morning, good morning, Leah Alicia. Glad you could join me from Australia. Good morning to Neil. Glad you could join me from New Zealand. Is this whole talk of being in the zone, and we've all had it, right? Go ahead and pop in the comments if you've ever been in that state where someone says to you, you're in the zone, or you are working on something, a project, or maybe it's during a physical event like whitewater rafting or playing sports or, riding a bike or anything like that. And you have this overwhelming sense of fulfillment or satisfaction or optimism, right? Just that feel good state. All right. So if you know what I'm talking about and you've ever experienced that being in the zone, pop it into the comments and let me know that you've had that feeling of being in the zone. Because the question is, how do we repeat that? When you're in the zone, right? It's almost like you can do anything. Like the gods have aligned everything perfectly so that everything is going along as it should. It seems easy. Maybe even after you're done, you surprise yourself, right? That you accomplished so much or that you were able to actually do something rather easily because during that time, you were so focused, right? You were so focused. You were in the zone. And a lot of other people talk about it, especially in sports. They call it being in the flow. They talk about the flow where, the physical and the mental both align to make it where the whole outside world just kind of dissolves away. And it's just you and that event. It's just you and that event. Right, absolutely, Lee. It's something we can experience, all right, subconsciously. And it's not until after we're in the zone that we realize, all right, that it's because we actually are doing it. And so this morning I wanted to talk to you about, all right, in the zone, what it is and how it's possible to work toward recreating that. Task and, and digging up and mulching and all like that is just peaceful to me. And that's kind of what in the zone is for me in a sports thing, right? When I'll, even at the over 40 league basketball, when I'm in the zone, basically scoring points and grabbing rebounds and basically taking these younger guys to school, because I'm not 40, a little bit over, but I find myself in the zone because I'm actually just in this state, if you will, right? Okay? So there's a lot of things that subconsciously we end up finding ourselves in the zone. It doesn't necessarily have to be sports. It can be anything. It can be creative. It can be business. Because success in business is about creating that success, right? Good morning, Mimi. Glad you could join me. So this morning, I wanted to talk to you all about, all right, being able to tap into being in the zone or being in the flow more when it comes to building your business. And it's actually easier than we thought, because science is going to back me up on this. You all know how I love science. All right. So as I said, the important thing about understanding about being in the zone is everyone has that ability to be in the zone. Most of us come across it subconsciously. All right. It's when we're in a creative or a physical state. It's almost like we're schizophrenic. So maybe we're a little bit mental illness, but that's where science backs us up, right? Okay. That's where science backs us up. Because the truth is, it really is the two parts of the brain working at the same time that allow us to, at that moment, okay, tap into our true potential. That's what's so amazing. That's why they call it being in the flow, right? Because mentally and physically, the two are coming together at that time. And one of the things that we always talk about, see, so many people are so, it really is a fight against the social aspect of us being human beings, because socially, right, we're always in a state of normalcy, if you will, right, where we're in control of our focuses and we're in control of our thought process, right? Okay, because from a business standpoint, think about this, all right? Got to plan it out, follow the plan, all like that. So that means consciously we're controlling our focus and our thought process. But when you're in the zone, all right, when the world fades away, like I talked about, right? My wife said about gardening, where everything just dissolves. I know this from my own, experience in football. They're playing in front of crowds of, 40, 50, 60,000 people. Those people literally disappear when you're on the field, or they did for me. And that's the funny thing. A lot of athletes talk about that they in the beginning, the crowd helps pump them up or whatever. But a lot of guys, we don't even see the crowd anymore because we're in the zone, right? And that's when that state of normalcy dissolves, right? And we're in the zone because at that moment, you have it. You know what I'm saying? You have it. And what is happening that you're in this zone or you have it and normalcy fades away? All right? It's almost like, right, you're in that flow because it's effortless. You follow what I'm saying? And it's not until you experienced or after you've experienced this that you understand that there's this pride and excitement at the same time. Because it's happening, right? And you're just doing it. And you're doing it at a higher level. And it's not, Mimi, it's not focus, because it's subconscious. It's tapping into the fact that you have these abilities. And that's what I talk to all of you about all the time. We are born with an amazing set of skills, okay? Amazing, okay? Possibilities. Amazing, each of us. But society has kind of boxed us in so that we essentially only want to stay within the normal. And that's because I talked about it before. We are social beings. All right. There are those that don't want to be, obviously, but the majority of us, all right, proves it, because we're on Facebook right now. All right. Thrive on that social being aspect. And I'm going to talk to you about a study here in a little bit that proves that. And less people are able to tap into this flow or this whole in the zone And when we read about people or see people doing it, right, we're amazed. We're amazed that people can reach those potentials or heights. And it happens in creativity and art. It happens in science. It happens in so many things. And it has a lot to do, we can label it, right? Manifestation if you want. Because essentially, all right, if you go and you look at the work of the well-known Abraham Maslow, Maslow, Maslow of the Maslow hierarchy of needs fame. Maslow hierarchy of needs fame. All right, look it up. Amazing work, right? He called these the flow or the zone, being in the zone. He called these sessions, right? Because that's what they are. They're fleeting moments, right? Extraordinary fame experiences to ourselves. Extraordinary experiences to ourselves. All right? Extraordinary experiences to ourselves. These are peak experiences. We know that after the fact because you sit there and you go, shit, I did that. Shit, I did that. So what it is it is a physical manifestation of our true potential. Even if for that fleeting moment, it's a physical manifestation of our true potential. And we all know what we talk about, right? That if you think it, you write it down, okay, and you do it, shit happens, right? Shit happens. So how do you find yourself more in the flow, if you will? How do you find yourself more in that zone? Okay? You basically need to be able to make things happen because you decide that it needs to exist. And so you manifest it, right? You manifest it. And when it happens, damn, it feels good, right? Have you ever found yourself, right, creating something or doing something, all right, and things are falling into place and it happens, and after the fact, you're sitting there going, oh my God, that's so friggin' amazing. And I did it, right? So there's that sense of pride and excitement. So how do we tap into that? You see, emotionally, okay, it's people describe it as fulfillment. What's fulfillment? Fulfillment means that you did something, right? They describe a sense of satisfaction. They also have a sense of optimism. So when people come out of being in the zone, those are three amazing feelings to have, right? Fulfillment, satisfaction, optimism. And it's been proven by science that those feelings, all right, have been proven to happen just by the dopamine levels that are in the brain. And I'll talk about that in a little bit because that's the beauty, right, of how amazing we are as human beings. That we can basically feed our dopamine levels in order to help us geek ourselves up, if you will, to perform at a higher level. All right? And then what happens, a lot of people describe it again as that dissolving away of the world outside, the getting rid of normalcy. All right? And the more you work toward achieving things, and I'm not talking about, driving yourself like crazy, all right? But the more things you attempt, the more opportunity you have to be in the zone. Because what you're going to find is there are things that just naturally come to you. And the world dissolves away. And you're not so worried about that normalcy. You see, so many people live in a state of fear. Not from the fact that they don't have the potential to achieve, but they're afraid of being judged by others. You see, go back to Abraham Maslow, M-A-S-L-O-W, right? And that hierarchy of needs. Read about that because you'll be interested to know how that works on us as an individual and on us as a social being, as part of the human race, if you will. You see, years ago, all right, as we become more of a social media society, all right, more of a social media society, all right, you're going to find that less and less people actually experience this this in the zone or this flow, right? Because they're always living, especially in social media, looking for, and I talked about it on yesterday's live, for that pat on the back, all right? That pat on the back, that me. And I talked about the fact that you need to go back to having better listening skills, which will actually help you be a better person, but also those are better sales skills because you're understanding about other people. What's interesting about social media now, all right, is that 80%, okay, the study saw that 80% of what's out there on most people's timelines is all about me. All about me, because people are trying to stand up and get noticed, right? Stand up and get noticed. But it's also because we're a social collective. As human beings, we have to be part of the crowd, if you will, all right? An interesting experiment was done about 10 years ago, all right? Researchers at the Karolinska Institute, Karolinska with a K, Institute, found that the dopamine systems involved in driving madness. All right, I'm back. Facebook's glitching out a little bit again. Glad you stayed with me. So I was talking about researchers a number of years ago at the Karolinska Institute found that dopamine systems involved in linking madness with genius, right? We always talk about that, right? That a person is so amazingly smart that they're almost, we use that word eccentric, right? And so they did a study and they found that dopamine levels in people with mental illness, creativity, madness, genius and all were actually nearly all the same. So there is that saying, you got to be a little crazy, right, in order to be successful. You got to be a little crazy in order to be able to be in this zone, because that's what it is. It's you and you alone, okay, doing, creating, finishing, and getting a high from it. And so if we go back to that state of normalcy, all right, they call it a contagion, if you will, contagion of inner stream of consciousness, all right? Inner stream of consciousness. And the reason so few are achieving it in the social media society is because we're constantly focusing on getting that pat on the back and all from others, whereas this being in the zone, in the flow, okay, that comes from you and the outside world fading away to get things done physically, right? That manifestation that becomes physical results. You know, an interesting thing about that, social media a lot of times, right, is wonderful. It's wonderful for getting the word out there. It's wonderful from a marketing standpoint. But so many people spend too much time on it, and it becomes that pat on the back that you matter, all right? And that's wonderful because it allows me to meet people like you all over the world. But there was a study done of 18 to 35-year-olds. And they actually did a study where they took away their social media, right, for 30 days. These were paid participants, all right? And they couldn't have access to things like Facebook and Instagram. And those same people, right, the majority, nearly 65%, actually had physical withdrawal symptoms, much like if they were on opioids. You see, because our bodies, right, we're not that far removed from that dinosaur caveman brain where our minds, because the way the dopamine basically is fed to our brain over experiences, right, is no different than drugs. And so what social media does for a lot of people is give them that high that they matter, especially when people like your post or interact, right? To you, you're like, I matter. And absolutely, that is fantastic. But not if it consumes everything about your day, because it doesn't allow you to be creative. It doesn't allow you to be in the flow, okay? Because you're spending so much time hoping that you get reactions, all right? And a lot of people I talk to, sit there and say, I'm posting on Facebook, I'm doing this. And I talk about, but are you adding value to the marketplace? And the way you add value to the marketplace is to actually be creative and do something that's going to bring value to someone else. All right? So why do I bring this up? Because it's not a bad thing. We are social human beings. And so social media allows us to feel that we're connected with other people. But what I want to bring up is, if we can do that, we can tap into these dopamine levels inside our brain consciously, right? And that's what I talk about each morning when I go, and a lot of people say, Bigg, how do you do it? And you're always so upbeat and all like that before you go to the gym. Yeah, because I'm gearing up and I'm feeding those dopamine levels into my brain, right? So I can hopefully perform at a higher peak level once I'm in there for the time that I have. That's part of it, right? That's part of that manufacturing or manifesting those higher levels so I can reach my true potential inside there. Which, when I was doing it, the reason I started these talks is because I had all this excess energy and these thoughts, right? These thoughts going through my head. And so I said, shit, why don't I just share it with all of you before I get in there? So I do get worked up. Absolutely. Because it helps me perform at a higher level. And you could do the same thing. You see, the thing is, most people, all right, have not tapped into that part of their brain because they're so locked into getting social validation from others. Let me show you an experiment that was done, all right, about 12 years ago. They did an experiment. Researchers did an experiment, and they brought together strangers, 100 strangers. And the experiment was rather simple. They paired people off in groups of 5, all right? In groups of 5 in different rooms. And the experiment was very simple. They hooked everyone up to these EKGs and the brain waves. And what they did was very simple. They brought out a red bouncy ball, you know that from gym basically, and they told the people it was very simple. You're going to throw the ball, pass the ball around to each other, okay, up until the point that when you get the signal, there's a signal basically, that person, okay, essentially when the light lights up, that person is not to be thrown the ball. All right? And everyone's happy as they're throwing the ball back and forth. These are strangers, right? Because there's an actual connection there. They're all doing the same thing. And there's an anticipation that you're going to get the ball thrown to you next. Then a funny thing happens. When the signal goes off and that person is excluded from the ball being passed to them, all right, their brain activity levels change. Their brain activities levels change because they're being left out. And so science has been proven, all right, that when you're doing something, your dopamine levels are higher. But that experiment also proved, all right, is that we are social beings. We want to be part of the collective. These were strangers. And the person actually had feelings of being pissed off, all right, depression, all of those things after the fact when they talked to these people. And they changed it up. And then they basically would leave the one person, right, at the end who thought they would be the victor, and then they'd switch it up. And so there was this elation of the person thinking they were going to be the last one, and then suddenly, guess what? They were part of the 5 again. So there was that competition where you wanted to be the last one. This is why people spend so much money on the lottery, right? Because there's that sense of like being part of the collective. Well, everyone else is spending money in the lottery, and I might just win. I might be that one person that's the victor. So it's really 2 states of mind, right? There's a conscious and a subconscious. And it all has to do with dopamine levels. And when you go to find yourself being in the zone, guess what they've found, all right? Research, Kaufman Institute, again, calls it a contagion of inner stream of conscious. So all that energy that people are normally expanding outside, right, to be part of the collective, somehow subconsciously is working to raise their dopamine levels to allow you to again, perform at peak levels, and everything else fades. So what's the trigger for that, right? So what's the trigger for that? And that's what's so amazing. You know, one of the things I could talk about, like I said, in that red rubber ball, right, is think about it. These were strangers, and yet they were upset because they were left out. And social media is no different. And so, of course, they find studies that 80% of what people post is about me, 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 me. We're all guilty, including myself. But that's because we're trying to find a sense of belonging, because ultimately we are social animals. But it's also taken away from most people not being able to perform at their true potential. That's why I get so many people reach out to me going, I wish I could have success the way you do. I could never do that. Why? Because they're living in the conscious now, right? And that fear keeps them from just doing stuff. Because the more you think about things, the less you're going to do them. Because what are you worried about? Exactly what I talked about. You're worried about being part of the normalcy, the group collective, and you don't want to be judged. So people tap less and less into that subconscious of being in the zone. But when you're in the zone, it's absolutely amazing. Let me give you, I'm talking about all these studies from 10, 15 years ago, but let me give you, right, a here and now. Who's heard of Beyonce? If you've heard of Beyonce, go ahead and pop in the comments. Who loves Beyonce, her music? Yes, she might be a little controversial, but if you love Beyonce and her empowerment, in many times, her music, not only empowering women, but also empowering different races, whether you agree with it or not, you have to agree that she's tapped into something, right? Her rise to fame, right? Her rise to fame comes from the fact that people can connect with her music. And she talks a lot about, being in that zone. I mean, even artists, right? Musical artists, a lot of them will talk about being in the zone when they're creating that album or whatever. Eminem is the same thing. The list goes on. All right. I'm just trying to be in the here and now with these examples, but it's happened all over time, all through the history of society. What's interesting is if you follow Beyonce at all right, that inner stream of consciousness, right? Inner stream, she talks about that. She talks about something just takes over. And actually, when she talks about it, right, in a lot of interviews, she'll say that that's her alter ego. Many of us talk about our alter ego. Our alter ego would do things we would never do ourselves. So is that schizophrenia? Are there actually two of us? Or do we all have the ability, right, to be several different people? Absolutely we do. That's what's so amazing about you as a human being. You have the potential to be good at this and good at that and good at that. But we never tap into that persona, if you will. And why is that? Fear. But Beyonce talks about, when it comes to creating music, right, and being in the zone, she talks about her alter ego, right, being Sasha Fierce. How many people have heard Beyonce talk about being creative because she's at that, her alter ego is Sasha Fierce, right? So much so that there's all these jokes around the world on YouTube, etc., about Beyonce Satanism, because she talks about this person taking over, right? This person taking over. What the is wrong with that? Nothing. But see, there's this stigmatism, right? This stigmatism, because people think it's schizophrenia or, but what it is it's going outside a state of normalcy. You see that? And the people that have no problem doing that. So when Beyonce calls it Sasha Fierce, what she's saying is that person takes over. But in reality, it's not a person. It's just that subconscious ability to perform at a peak level. I think it's friggin' brilliant. It's brilliant she talks about it, and yet she's stigmatized for it. And that's what most of you are afraid of. You're afraid that actually when you find yourself in the zone, that if you tell people, all right, like I said, my wife talked about it. I said, I don't know how you can do 8 hours of gardening and mulching and switching plants around and weeding. You're right? Because here I am going, God, that's crazy. But in reality, for her, that's part of her being in the zone. She enjoys that, right? And it takes her to a different level. And I have to agree that our flower beds and all look freaking amazing. So we all do it. We all judge people for that. And that's why I'm talking to you this morning, is we really need, okay, as human beings, to be part of the social collective. But if we're going, okay, to create, to make things happen, to add value to the marketplace, then all of us freaking need to find our Sasha Fierces and be proud of the fact that we have these alter egos. If an alter ego is what it takes for you to be in the zone and to create and to add value to the marketplace, then friggin' do it. So quickly, if you had an alter ego, pop into the comments. What would your alter ego's name be? If there is something inside you, all right, and I know some of you joke about it, because my wife has an alter ego name for herself, all right? And I love it when she says, that's, and I'm not going to give you it because it's funny in a way, all right? That's so-and-so taking over. And I've realized that I haven't done enough to encourage so-and-so to take over. Now, as a man, I love role-playing, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, but that person that takes over for her is an empowered person, extremely empowered. And I love when that person comes out. So what would be the name of your alter ego to allow you, all right, to be more outside the state of normalcy, to be in the zone, to make sure you have it more, to start to experience more of those emotions that go with being in the zone or in the flow, like fulfillment, like satisfaction, like optimism. So that when we feel those, it affects our performance and we perform at a higher peak level. You know, when the researchers and science proves that dopamine levels are the same, right? And that you can physically manifest those dopamine levels as if you shot up heroin and opioids yourself, the question begs itself. Why are so many of us waiting around for an outside physical catalyst to raise our brain activity, to feed dopamine into our systems, right? It's already there. It's already there. So how do we tap into it more? We do it by giving ourselves permission to be that alter ego more, right? And what happens, right? And I'm not saying, you know, that you go out, but it is a sense of schizophrenia. It is a sense of multiple lives, because that's how friggin' talented you are. That's how talented you are. But what's happened is so many people, right, because of this stigmatism, are so afraid, okay, to let people see these other beings that you are. So afraid. Because, again, it's all about the fear. So I'm going to say to you, one of the ways to do it, all right, you talk about it, people talk about a midlife crisis. I think a lot of times midlife crisis for a lot of people is, guess what? That they sit there and go, shit, I've got all these talents and things that I love, and I never did them because I fell into this state of normalcy of what other people wanted me to do. And they know what it feels like to be in the zone, to be that person, to have that talent, to start to use it, right? And they've lost that sense of fulfillment, right? That sense of satisfaction, that sense of optimism. Those three emotions, if we start to feel those more, are going to drive us to do what? More. And so if there's one thing that I want to see more people doing is allow yourself to be in the flow, to be effortless, so you can be filled with pride and excitement again. Give yourself permission to tap into your alter ego. And don't worry about others who judge you for that. Because if it makes you feel good, if it allows you to perform at higher levels, then guess what? You're the only person that matters. Because the one thing missing from most people's lives when I talk to them, right, is not more money. It's fulfillment. They talk about it all the time, that something's missing. Something's missing. What that is, only you can answer. But many times, those people know that it's because they're not satisfied where they are, all right? They're not very optimistic about their current situation. And certainly because of that, right? They feel they're not making a difference. They're just going through the motions. So this morning, I really, really am excited about the opportunity for people to start to tap back into that flow, if you will. And you don't have to be a sports person. There are business figures that talk about it, right? Steve Jobs talked about it all the time, all right? And many people who worked with him said he had multiple alter egos. And I guess someone like that who's so creative, who's such a visionary, obviously would. Because each of those alter egos, right, had their strengths and weaknesses. But in the end, look what was done with those alter egos. Look what was done when someone like that is in a stream of inner stream of consciousness. And you're no different. We all have the ability to tap into that unlimited potential and get ourselves in the zone. So on that note, it's your boy Bigg. I appreciate all of you joining me. I'm going to get inside, do what I need to do. And what I hope is at the very least, it gets you thinking about letting go a little bit more. Stop looking to society to check off the fact that, yep, you're normal, don't worry about it. And start doing more of the things that give you fulfillment, that give you satisfaction, and definitely give you optimism. Love you all. Peace. I'm out.